The vultures are circling at the door of Chelsea boss Graham Potter as we speak. After just 5 short months in the job, a string of disappointing results have left the Englishman on the brink of the sack. How long he will last is anyone's guess right now. But what exactly has gone wrong for the former Swansea and Brighton boss? And what, if anything, can he do to salvage his job and reputation? First up, let's delve into Potter's background. When Graham Potter rocked up at the Liberty Stadium back in 2018, many people cast a doubtful glance in the direction of then Swansea chairman Hugh Jenkins, who had appointed a relative nobody. But the appointment turned out to be a pretty shrewd one. Potter had impressed in Sweden with Östersunds, guiding the unfancied side to back-to-back promotions in his first 2 years in charge. The former Stoke City left-back had imposed a philosophy of actually playing football on the 4th Division side, and the results were instantaneous. Within 5 years of Potter's arrival, Östersunds had secured promotion to Swedish football's top flight, and their trailblazing boss was the toast of Scandinavian football. Of course, an Englishman making such waves abroad wasn't going to go unnoticed, and in the summer of 2018, Jenkins came calling. A decent campaign saw the recently relegated Swans reach the FA Cup quarter-final, where they almost upset English champions Manchester City, whilst also finishing 10th in the Championship. But Potter wasn't long for the Welsh Valleys, not by any stretch. With Chris Hughton's dismissal from Brighton and Hove Albion at the end of the 2018-19 season, Potter was installed in the Amex hot seat and a period of free-flowing football followed. Brighton's easy-on-the-eye style attracted plenty of plaudits from around the football world, but they weren't completely without their detractors. Occasionally, accusations of Potter playing an attractive brand which lacked any real bite were thrown around, but more on that a little bit later. London was calling. We're talking about Chelsea now. Stay with us. Stamford Bridge is a turbulent place for any manager to ply his trade. I mean, the list of world-class talent sacked from that job reads like a who's who of managerial royalty. Potter is the 21st Chelsea manager of the Premier League era, so it's safe to say that successive ownership regimes have drained the metaphorical managerial well. Chelsea's controversial former Russian owner Roman Abramovich went through managers like hotcakes, and with the way new chairman Todd Boehly cruelly discarded Champions League winning German Thomas Tuchel, it appears as though it could be more of the same at Chelsea's HQ under the Americans' leadership. One thing is for sure, no matter who happens to be sitting in Chelsea's dugout, time is never usually their friend. What's going wrong for Potter then? As we touched on briefly earlier, we all know that Graham Potter sides have a specific style of play. His teams like to get the ball down and play, similar to that invincible Arsenal side of the mid-2000s. From the outside looking in though, it seems like his current crop of players have different ideas. Trying to get multi-millionaire prima donnas to buy into a system when you're largely untested in the upper echelons of the game is a difficult task. I mean, just look at how some of these very players downed tools under Frank Lampard, a bona fide Chelsea legend. If you think a squad consisting of some of the same players are going to have Graham Potter's back, you're sorely mistaken. Potter has an obscene amount of talent at his disposal, but attempting to get a tune out of players who obviously aren't buying into your methods is like banging your head against a brick wall. And that problem is twofold. You can only get 11 players on the pitch at any one time. This obviously means that a lot of players are going to be disappointed at not starting games week in, week out. You try telling a £100 million player that they're on the bench and see how that works out for you. When results go against them, Potter is forced to try different formations and tactics. This, in turn, means that more players are being used and most of the players aren't getting a good run in the team. Playing this way means it's nigh on impossible to put a good run together. Should Potter be taking some of the blame? Well, in a word, yes. It's all well and good pointing out the obvious mental frailties of men who have been coddled their entire adult lives. But Potter hasn't particularly helped himself since arriving at the bridge, and he has failed to truly assert himself on the squad. Instead of trying to get rid of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who he clearly doesn't fancy, he simply left the Gabon striker out of his Champions League squad. This during one of Chelsea's worst goal droughts in recent years. I mean, it's one thing if a player doesn't fit your style, it's another thing entirely when he's the only real striker of proven quality in the squad. Potter has shot himself in the foot where Aubameyang is concerned. Chelsea creates chances, just like Potter's Brighton, but they have no one to put the ball in the back of the net, just like Potter's Brighton. Why leave a proven goal-scoring threat out then? Maybe taking a leaf out of Manchester United boss Erik ten Hag's book would have been the way to go. Ten Hag came up against a striker with a far bigger reputation than Aubameyang just before the World Cup and wasted no time in cancelling Cristiano Ronaldo's contract. Potter should have forced a sale if he really wasn't happy with Aubameyang, as refusing to play him in a goal-shy team just doesn't make sense from where people are sitting. Should Graham Potter wish to advance in the Champions League, he could do with someone like Aubameyang. Alas, this is no longer an option. What about Chelsea's transfer strategy? Well, that January transfer window certainly got tongues wagging around the football world. And for a man who was already under pressure in January, he probably won't have thanked the board for airdropping in so many players all at once. Potter needs to figure out a system where these players can fit into, and fast. At the moment, getting all of these players onto the pitch in a formation which can produce results remains one of his top priorities. Well, that and actually winning a game of football. Chelsea's assault on the transfer market this past January was relentless, but Potter seems as though he would have preferred the squad he had already worked with, as any sort of cohesion so far has failed to materialise. A coach with the skill set of Graham Potter appears to get the best out of a tight-knit squad. A squad which is settled and balanced, from whom you can probably name at least 10 of the 11 starters every Saturday. This simply isn't happening at the moment. Potter has as many headaches off the pitch as he does on it. A bloated squad doesn't suit most managers, much less a man like Potter, who's very much used to working on a shoestring. The fact that they spent a staggering £600 million in a January transfer and have 2 out of push 3 guaranteed starters also speaks volumes. Like, who is making these decisions? It doesn't appear to be Graham Potter. So, is there any hope on the horizon? Trying to second-guess Chelsea Football Club and their ownership hierarchy is like a game of pin the tail on the donkey. It's sheer guesswork. Bowley obviously went after Potter and decided that the former Brighton boss was his man. Will he continue to show faith in him despite a lacklustre run which has seen Potter produce just 2 wins in the last 15 games? It's hard to see how he keeps his job if results don't improve, and quickly. That being said, Bowley and the Chelsea board could possibly be accused of short-sightedness should they fire Potter, especially given their massive outlay just a few weeks back. For all parties, this is essentially a project still in its infancy. Bowley and the board must realise that the upheaval at Chelsea this season and bringing Potter in after the season has already started wasn't ideal. There are those around the game who believe he should at least be given a full season to get his own ideas across. If he can steady the ship over the next few weeks and months of the season and finish with some degree of respectability, then there's the potential that he could be in the hot seat at the beginning of next season. Whether Todd Bowley sees it like that, we just don't know. Sacking Graham Potter after such a turbulent, unprecedented season, which has seen the disruption of a World Cup and an insane transfer policy, would simply seem unfair to many. What are the Chelsea faithful saying about Potter then? Well, it's not pretty, put it that way. There were audible groans around the bridge last weekend as Chelsea were humbled by a plucky relegation-threatened Southampton. Inexplicably, Potter had left Reece James, Thiago Silva, Hakim Ziyech and the aforementioned Aubameyang out of the squad entirely. That didn't sit well with the locals. Over this past weekend, Potter had revealed that Chelsea fans had written to him wishing for him and his kids to die. As repulsive as this is, it pretty much tells you everything you need to know about the atmosphere around the club at the moment. Potter revealed that it's been a trying time mentally, and that he's even sought advice from one of the game's elder statesmen, David Moyes, on how best to approach the situation. For how they've treated Potter, Chelsea fans should be ashamed of themselves. A club who were not much more than a cup team until Roman Abramovich plucked them from mid-table mediocrity in 2003. The club has been more successful during this period than any other in their history, and the fans will do well to remember that they have no divine right to win anything. But as most Premier League fans well know, the words Chelsea and class do not collocate. Thanks for tuning in today, guys, and remember to hit the like and subscribe so you don't miss out on more great content in the near future. And give us your thoughts on Potter and how you see this whole situation playing out in the comments below. Bye, guys.